Take a look at the clothes you're wearing right now. Maybe it's a puffer jacket you bought at a store. Maybe it's a thick wool sweater. You put it on, walk out the door, and don't give it another thought. It's cold outside. You add a layer. The problem is solved in 30 seconds. But about 21,000 years ago, at the peak of the Ice Age, the global average temperature was about 8 to 10 degrees Celsius lower than it is today. That might sound small, but it was enough to turn most of Northern Europe and North America into massive ice sheets up to 3 kilometers thick. It was enough to lower sea levels by over 120 meters, to the point where a person could walk from England to France on dry land. Yet, ancient humans didn't just survive, they thrived. How? The answer, it turns out, is not that they were stronger than us. It's not that they were better at enduring the cold. The answer lies in something we do every single day, but rarely realize we are doing. The first myth most people fall for is thinking that ancient humans lived in caves, shivering by small fires, praying for winter to pass. That image isn't entirely wrong, but it misses the most important part. Let's go to Ukraine, 1965. A farmer in the village of Mezhyrich, about 110 kilometers southeast of Kiev, was digging to expand his basement. 2 meters down, he hit something very large and very hard. Not rock. Bone. Not just one bone, hundreds of them, arranged in a circle. When archaeologists from the Soviet Union arrived to excavate between 1966 and 1974, they discovered 4 complete structures. Each was about 12 to 24 square meters. All of them were built from hundreds of mammoth bones, including skulls, ribs, tusks, and jawbones, arranged in a circle to form the frame of the walls. The top was, in all likelihood, covered in animal hides. Inside each structure was a hearth. These structures date back about 18,000 years, to the coldest and harshest stage of the Ice Age. At that time, wood was virtually non-existent on the vast frozen steppes of Eastern Europe. And yet, the ancient humans didn't just walk away. They looked at the giant bones of dead animals and saw building materials. The latest research from 2025, led by Wei Chu of Leiden University, using more precise radiocarbon dating, shows that these roofs were not permanent settlements. They were pit stops built and abandoned as the group moved on. That is even more impressive because it means ancient humans didn't just know how to build houses. They knew how to build them quickly, build them well, and then keep going. They moved along with the herds. These people weren't just scraping by on luck, they were planners. But a roof only solves part of the problem. Outside that roof, temperatures could still drop to minus 30 or minus 40 degrees Celsius, and the ancient humans still had to go outside to hunt. This is where clothing became life-saving technology. We know this not through speculation, but through a graveyard. In 1955, on the outskirts of the city of Vladimir, Russia, construction workers stumbled upon a site. Over the next 20 years of excavation, archaeologists found graves that are still ranked among the richest of the entire European Paleolithic era. The site is called Sungir, dating back about 34,000 years. The first grave belonged to a man about 55 to 57 years old. He was at least 1 meter 78 tall, with shoulders wider than the modern man. Draped over his skeleton were more than 3,000 beads made from mammoth ivory. The position of each bead allowed scientists to reconstruct the original garment: a pullover tunic, trousers integrated with footwear, and a hat decorated with Arctic fox teeth. That outfit wasn't burial attire made just for the funeral. It was the clothes he wore every day. The second grave was even more shocking. 2 children, one about 12 to 13 and one about 9 to 10, were buried head-to-head in a single pit. Covering the 2 children were more than 10,000 ivory beads, over 300 perforated Arctic fox teeth, and 16 spears made from mammoth ivory. These children, according to archaeological analysis, had physical disabilities from a young age. One had bowed and shortened thigh bones. The other showed signs of severe mobility restrictions. Neither could have been a powerful hunter or a major economic contributor to the group. Yet, their community spent a massive amount of effort sewing meticulously decorated clothes for those 2 children, burying them with careful rituals and placing their most precious possessions in the grave. That doesn't speak to survival technology. It speaks to the kind of society they had built. No technology, no roof, no piece of clothing, is enough if you have to face the Ice Age alone. The true secret to survival isn't individual strength. It's language. Anthropologist Brian Fagan of the University of California, Santa Barbara, who has spent his entire career studying the relationship between climate and human evolution, points out that Homo sapiens had an advantage that no other species had at that time: the ability to speak fluently and the ability to plan for the future. That might sound trivial, but think about what it allowed them to do. Archaeologists have found evidence of large-scale, collective hunts. At the Morin site in France and Solutré in Burgundy, they found the bones of thousands of horses and bison driven over cliffs or into deep ravines. This wasn't the result of luck. This was the result of a plan discussed in advance, with clearly assigned roles and the perfect coordination of dozens of people moving in unison across a vast landscape. Without language, you cannot discuss a hunting plan for the next morning. Without language, you cannot pass down to the next generation that the reindeer herds passed through the Western Valley last March. Without language, every generation has to relearn from scratch what the previous ones spent a lifetime discovering. With language, knowledge is cumulative, and cumulative knowledge is the most powerful weapon humans have ever created. This is also why the Neanderthals, even though they had lived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years before Homo sapiens arrived, eventually vanished. The Neanderthals weren't weak. Their physiology was well adapted to the cold, perhaps even better than ours. But their social structure and their ability to pass information across generations do not seem to have reached the same level of complexity. When environmental conditions changed too rapidly, they didn't have the tools to adapt in time. Homo sapiens did. The Ice Age ended about 11,700 years ago, when the climate began to warm rapidly and the massive ice sheets retreated to the north. When the ice melted, those survivors didn't emerge from the caves empty-handed. They stepped out with tens of thousands of years of experience compressed into the collective memory of the community. They knew how to hunt, how to sew clothes, how to build houses from whatever materials were at hand, how to organize society so that no one was left behind, not even children with disabilities who couldn't fend for themselves. And from those skills, they began to build agriculture, then cities, then writing, and everything we live in today. The next time you zip up your jacket before stepping out into the cold, remember that the movement is the result of a chain of innovation that began 34,000 years ago on a frozen Russian steppe by people who used Arctic fox teeth and mammoth ivory to sew the best clothes they could for two disabled children. We didn't survive the Ice Age because we were strong. We survived because we never let anyone face the cold alone. This video ends here. Thank you for watching to the end. We will be making more videos like this in the future. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos.